Please don't be surprised. This is our home, Taiwan. If you've never seen it like this, maybe you've never been this high above it. Let's imagine we're drifting clouds or high-flying birds, and together, let's witness the beauty and sorrow of this island.
Anata sar
Each boat, loaded with a day's catch, is a reward for the fisher's toils. Each field, full of crops, is a prize for the farmer's efforts. Our ancestors sailed across the treacherous strait at different times and from different places. But they all worked the same fields, humbling growing and nurturing the crops with their sweat. They work day in and day out just to grow enough food to build their homes and support their children. from north to south, east to west. People of all ages and walks of life have worked as hard as they can in this land. We not only sustain ourselves, but we work even harder to create a better future for the next generation. This island has been quietly nurturing us, along with other living things. These creatures lived in harmony with this land for millennia. But who disrupted the balance between all living things and sowed the seeds of disaster? In June 2012, we were flying along the coast of Taidong County. It had begun to rain, but the rain wasn't too heavy. As the helicopter turned toward the Pindong Plain, it was hit by the southwesterly airstream. Heavy rain poured down, hitting the front windshield hard. Meanwhile, on the ground, currents began to emerge. Water flooded the orchards and fish farms. Over the past 2 decades, on average, we've had 93 days of heavy rainfall, 42 days of very heavy rainfall, and 13 days of extreme rainfall yearly. But over the last 30 years, heavy rainfall days have clearly increased, while light rainfall days have clearly decreased. In other words, we either have heavy rainfall or no rain at all. Taiwan's total rainfall hasn't changed much, but there are fewer and fewer rainy days. The rain is concentrated to such an extent that the land can't bear it any longer. For example, during Typhoon Morakot, the rainfall in Alishan alone reached a record-breaking 2,855 millimeters in just 5 days. That's more than Taiwan's average annual rainfall. Before the year 2000, these large-scale disasters happened once every 3 or 4 years. But in the last 10 years, nearly every year has brought a super typhoon that caused serious flooding. Flying through the clouds, we see Mount Dawu from above. The scars left by Typhoon Morakot are still clearly visible. For the past 10 years, each instance of heavy rainfall in these mountains has brought a similar disaster. Hundreds of tons of mudflow and fallen rocks remind us how frightening a natural disaster can be. Taiwan is a small mountainous island with mountains covering nearly 3/4 of its area. Moreover, most of its mountains are very steep, making them prone to tremors, mudflows, and landslides. Since the earthquake on September 21st, 1999, disasters like these have become more frequent. This driftwood, washed down from the mountains, was once a mountaintop forest, standing tall and proud. Now it lies motionless on the riverbank, like a pile of abandoned corpses. Building a highway through the mountains once symbolized man's dominance over nature. In reality, it was the beginning of disaster. In their arrogance, man drew the shortest line through these mountain forests. By doing so, they destroy the land's natural structure. As a result, the road slides every time it rains. Containers are used as supports to keep it in place. Cars traverse the roads day and night, oblivious to the terror that lies below. Most people never see the terrors, and the few who do avert their eyes. Cars ascend the mountains one after another, but the passengers are often unaware that their excursions are more like risk-seeking than tourism. This is Chushan train station in Alishan, a popular site for watching the sunrise. Every day, it's packed with tourists, but most people have no idea that a site of massive landslides lies just below their feet. When disaster strikes, not even the gods can protect themselves, let alone humble creatures like us. Only when viewed from above do we see that this mountain village is sandwiched between collapsed slopes like a lonely island. These roads that could be blocked at any time are its fragile lifelines. Taiwan has many mountain villages like this, but their people don't want to leave. They wish to stay with the spirits of their ancestors. But the bigger obstacle is that if they leave home, no one can guarantee them the resources or space they need. This is a mountain in Taiwan. It was once home to broad-leaved forests. Their roots gripped the soil tightly and trapped rainwater. Still, how could these forests that took decades and centuries to mature compete with beetle palms that make men loads of money each year? Since we now live in a time where everything is judged by how much profit it brings, the trees that grew in these forests for generations have been mercilessly cut down and replaced with beetle palm saplings. From above, we could see an excavator working on the ground. It's making space for another crop. Tea. High mountain tea. The trees here were also mercilessly felled. Wait. No, we can't say mercilessly. In this day and age, we say they were felled efficiently. The same goes for cabbage fields. Once some gourmet claimed that the higher it's grown, the better it tastes. People took the cabbage from the plains and started growing it on hills, turning the mountains into farmland. We can see how these beautiful mountains have turned ugly. But what we can't see is even more terrifying: when the trees whose deep roots trapped soil and water were ripped up and replaced with shallow-rooted crops. It was the start of a tragedy. Roads are built higher and higher up, and we venture deeper and deeper into the forests. We build iron-roofed bungalows in the woods and concrete baths beside the valleys. Pipes and wires cut arrogantly across rivers and divide up the sky. Tall buildings rise up from protected areas, and hot spring hotels stop the flow of rivers, leaving space for only a narrow stream. When the rain pours down and the water has nowhere to go, our lives and property are threatened. But we always blame nature instead of ourselves. We keep building fancy castles on hilltops, refusing to admit this pseudo-European architecture doesn't match the surroundings. Still more, we refuse to admit the land here can't bear the impact of such large-scale development. But until disaster strikes, we'll keep building luxury hotels. For the unrelenting flow of tourists, sightseeing, eating high mountain vegetables, and drinking high mountain tea have become trendy pastimes. Nobody realizes that they are accomplices to future disasters. The mountains and forests are hurt. Over and over again, heavy rain washes pieces of them into the valley. As the river flows through the valley, it deposits mud that becomes sediment, turning the reservoir into a container for stones and mud. Wanda Reservoir was once known as Green Lake for its beautiful bluish-green water. Today, 80 million tons of mud and rock fill nearly 70% of the reservoir. The beautiful bluish-green has been replaced by a pool of muddy water. Most reservoirs in Taiwan are facing similar crises. Nearly 1/3 of their capacity have been filled in by mud. The total volume of Taiwan's 17 major reservoirs was once 2.65 billion cubic meters. By 2010, only 1.93 billion cubic meters remained. The volume of deposits has already reached 710 million cubic meters, and it continues to increase at a rate of 22 million cubic meters per year. As the life expectancy of these reservoirs gets shorter and shorter, the amount of water we can store gets smaller and smaller. We fail to keep the rain that nature gives us and helplessly watch it flow into the sea. Gazing down onto the southwest coast of Taiwan, endless fish farms come into view. Fish farms cover 40,000 hectares of the island's surface. Many fish species are farmed here, with a total annual value of 30.7 billion NT dollars, 1/3 of Taiwan's entire fishing industry. Fish farming requires large amounts of clean water, much of which must be extracted from groundwater. Countless pipes are laid across embankments and used to extract groundwater. According to statistics, Taiwan extracts over 5 billion tons of groundwater each year. This is far more than the land can bear. When groundwater decreases due to overextraction, the land begins to sink. Currently, Yunlin County is sinking the fastest. On average, Yunlin sinks over 7 centimeters per year. In total, the land has sunk more than 2 meters. Taiwan is gradually sinking. On the West Coast plains, over 1,000 square kilometers of land have already sunk below sea level. So when seawater intrusion occurs, the houses and fields are flooded. The high water marks on the walls are vivid records of the sea's repeated visits. Even our ancestors sleeping below grounds have fallen victim. The beautiful land they settled in a century ago is now flooded with salt water as their burial ground merges with the sea. Straight artificial harbors have replaced natural zigzag coastlines. There are artificial concrete harbors every 7 kilometers along the west coast of Taiwan. Abalone farms once dominated Taiwan's northeast coast. Men divided the beautiful rocky coastlines with concrete. With profit in sight, no one ever considered the damage was irreversible. The protruding breakwater causes changes in sand distribution and results in the so-called growing effect. Sand accumulates on the side facing the current, while on the other side, sand is lost to the sea. This means the shore is receding, so we add even more tetrapods to prevent coastal erosion, adding even more concrete to our shores in the process. The artificial tetrapods replace natural rocks where sea creatures gather and hunt for food. Taiwan has 1,322 kilometers of coastlines, and 55.56% of it has concrete piled on top of it. We've built a wall to separate us from the sea, and the same wall will prevent our children from approaching the ocean. Isn't that a cruel irony for an island country like Taiwan? The sea is where life originated. The sea is not a barrier. Rather, it's a route from our island to the rest of the world. We should never treat it as a barrier or block ourselves in. More importantly, we should never discolor the water or destroy its natural purity. Wetlands are natural water purifiers. They break down toxins before releasing them into the sea. Therefore, we could think of them as the Earth's kidneys. But due to pollution and overdevelopment, the wetlands are shrinking. If we carry on as usual, over half of Taiwan's wetlands will disappear before our eyes. Overuse of fertilizers, detergents, and sewage can cause eutrophication. Combined with untreated water from factories, they turn clear water into stagnant pools. Pollution and untreated water have robbed Taoyuan's Guanyin coastal waters of their beautiful turquoise color. The polluted water floats beside the still, pristine sea, the two sides embracing each other like yin and yang. trace the black current back to the estuary. From the polluted river, the current of black, untreated water flows unrelentingly toward the sea. Taiwan has countless heavily polluted rivers just like this one. But when we look upon such frightening scenes, we either feel helpless or pretend not to see. The untreated water not only pollutes the ocean, but it also contains toxins. Once they've soaked into the soil, they'll be even harder to eliminate. But we still drink the water and eat the crops that are grown here. The threats they pose remain out of sight, out of mind. It seems we are already accustomed to blaming nature, the earth, and the government when things go wrong. These iron-roofed factories once contributed to Taiwan's economic miracle. They improved our lives, but also produced serious pollution. By the time we had risen above the poverty line, became better off, and started processing our wastewater, we were polluting our water faster than we could clean it. Despite implementing environmental laws, there are still factories that pump out wastewater surreptitiously in the dead of night, adding a layer of black oil to the river's already polluted yellow water. All the river's living creatures were wiped out. None survived. What's even more shocking is that such heavily polluted water flows freely through residential areas. This is the environment we live in. In the end, only in our imaginations can we conjure the original colors of the mountains, rivers, and sky. This is a cement mine on the east coast of Taiwan. The cement industry is hugely harmful to the environment. 1 ton of cement requires 1.4 tons of limestone, 300 kilos of clay, and 60 kilos of silica sand to produce. Men slash the beautiful forest to pieces to attain these raw materials. But we don't see such destruction because we never venture into the mountains. Cement mining also consumes huge amounts of energy. It takes 112.9 kilowatt hours of electricity and 132.7 kilos of coal to produce 1 ton of cement. The process also releases large amounts of CO2, but since cement is a necessity, mining seems like a necessary evil. Still, of the over 19 million tons of cement we produce annually, nearly half is exported. We turn our beautiful mountains and forests into cement and sell it to others, then pass down the decimated environment to the next generation. In addition to cement, the amount of sand and gravel mined is even more astonishing. It's estimated that over 100 million tons are mined annually, and around 60% are mined illegally. This illegal mining leaves massive craters in the ground. What's even more horrific is when those heartless men fill the holes with garbage, causing another kind of environmental catastrophe. In fact, Taiwan's rivers wash down an incredible amount of sand and gravel. There is no need to mine them illegally. But businessmen choose to mine illegally because it's cheaper than legal mining. When profits come first, environmental damage is of little concern. Under the banner of economic development, industrial parks mushroomed in Taiwan. Towering smokestacks abound. When there is no space left on shore, we compete with the sea for land. We litter the beautiful coastline with artificial islands. This giant smokestack is over 250 meters tall and belongs to the Taichung Power Plant. This plant is the largest coal-fired power station in the world. Without it, we couldn't meet industrial or domestic electricity demands. However, this plant also emits more CO2 than any other plant on Earth. To distribute electricity, we build countless pylons that traverse our rivers and mountains. The power company spends lots of money to maintain the network and ensure a steady supply of electricity. But we can't help noticing, amid the lush green mountains, these pylons are hardly in harmony with their surroundings. Still, these densely built pylons play an important role in maintaining our comfortable lives. This is where we see the conflicts and contradictions between industrial development and environmental protection. For example, we enjoy the convenience of high-speed rail travel, but all our daily activities are supported by large amounts of electricity. We can easily communicate with people in faraway places and build economic relations with the world. But behind our economic growth figures lies rapidly increasing energy consumption. In recent years, high-tech industry has become the main source of Taiwan's exports and has come to symbolize Taiwan's competitiveness. But this high-earning industry also consumes enormous amounts of energy. Statistics show that electricity consumption in the IT sector accounts for 16% of Taiwan's total electricity consumption. Resolving the conflict between energy demand and environment is not a question of who's right and who's wrong, nor is it a matter of conflicting ideologies. Rather, it's a serious issue that we all must rationally consider. In fact, the conflicts we're facing aren't only between energy demand and environmental protection. These problems extend to our basic need for housing. Faced with shortages of land in the plains, we expand into the surrounding mountains. However, houses always seem to be built more quickly than regulations can be revised. In the old days, people spoke of houses rising from the plains, but today, our houses rise from the hills. One old nursery rhyme goes like this: before my home, a brook. Behind my home, a hill. However, before today's homes lies not a brook, but a dangerous collapse slope. We care more about our houses' price per square meter than whether they will be safe places to live in tomorrow. Contradictions between material comforts and the environment have haunted our lives for a long time. We say we want to conserve energy and protect the earth while continuing to produce large amounts of garbage. You may not know that Taiwan's per capita garbage production is one of the largest in the world. We process about 7.4 million tons of garbage each year. Most landfills are located near the ocean, where there's no one to protest or complain. Many of these landfills are not well protected, so as waves lap against the shore, our garbage is pulled into the sea. Drifting with the currents, the trash spreads along the coast. In the past, some cities bury their garbage nearby due to a lack of funding. These dump sites have begun to threaten public health. We have to spend even more time and money digging up and processing the waste. But the irony is, while we're processing old garbage, we continue to produce even more new waste. It's as if, as long as we can't see it, our waste problem doesn't exist. This is our island, our home. For several generations, we have lived in this land where natural resources are scarce and natural disasters abound. Nevertheless, we have toiled to create unprecedented prosperity. Meanwhile, this island has nurtured generations of people with its flesh and blood. Like a mother who has borne too many children, her body is exhausted and in great pain. But she never complains. She remains silent and gives her children whatever they require. Only when her children greedily squeeze the last drop of milk from her body can we hear her moan, softly, in agony. People often say that if it weren't for the comfort and happiness of our children, our sacrifices would be meaningless. But sometimes, it feels like our so-called sacrifices are merely excuses to pillage. We plunder vast resources from this land to satisfy our endless desires, but we never consider and may never admit that what we are leaving our next generation is desolation. History has repeatedly shown us that the peak of a boom is the beginning of a decline. Is there a looming crisis behind the current boom? Is there? In Miaoli County's Holong Township, Ms. Hongxiang and her fellow villagers resisted the pressure and temptation to turn their land into an industrial park. They insisted on organic farming. In her fields, crops, weeds, and insects live in harmony. She says we get what the insects leave behind. Our needs are few, but we desire too much. In recent years, an increasing number of people share her thoughts. They insist on using environmentally friendly organic farming methods. Their profit margins may seem laughable to those accustomed to high efficiency and returns. But they firmly believe that only when we treat the land well can it treat our offspring well in return. Here's another example. His name is Lai Qing-song. While studying in Japan, he witnessed the Japanese attitude toward the environment. When he returned to Taiwan, he gave up the convenience of city life and a high-earning job to move back to the village in Yilan, where he learned to farm and grow rice organically. Just like Ms. Hongxiang, when growing rice this way, the harvest is not proportionate to the efforts he exerts. Sometimes, he gets even less than he puts in. To solve this, he came up with an idea. He set up a cooperative and invited people who share his philosophy to join. Lai is responsible for working the fields. He and his partners share the risks of damage from pests and natural disasters. In return, they also share the harvest. Hongxiang and Lai Qing-song's projects are experiments, but they are the beginning of something important. Their actions demonstrate a simple idea. We have no right to indulge our endless desires at the expense of future generations, because we live here only temporarily, and we are simply passing through. Close your eyes. Breathe in deep. Can you see what I see?
还有多久能够呼吸？看得见，看不见。充满我的空，用生命告诉我，难道就这样路已到尽头？拿的那么多，还的那么少。如果还有明天，能不能让伤口愈合？能不能让大地重生？Ki papa ema, ki papa ema, musuka ki papa ema. Kahulasa, kahulasa, musuka kahulas. Ki papa ema, musuka ki papa ema. Kahulasa, kahulasa, musuka kahulas. Panas
Lokata ho laeta haye Lokata ho maide halaha Loho mito hora ho medanaha Iha ho Wahati